Hello guys, this is Igor Vegas, US live stream, and today we're live with Sydney MGTOW.
What's going on, guys?
Introduce yourself, Sydney.
Look, I mean, to most of you, I probably won't need much introducing, but for those of you who don't know who I am, I've been around I guess, the manosphere on YouTube as a MGTOW content creator for just under 18 months now. Got about 22,000 subs. Most of my videos I just do in my car. It's my studio. And I mostly respond to articles and give my thoughts. Bit of philosophy here and there, but not the philosophy you'll learn at universities because you don't really learn anything there these days. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell, guys. Thanks for having me on, Igor.
Yes, great. So speaking of your channel, Sydney, I was the second one to tell people about how you are back in those things.
How I'm that well what?
That you're back from the YouTube shadow banning or something.
Yeah, so I basically the story behind that, and for those of you who have been following me for a while, they'll know that I actually originally lost my quite well-paid job as a result of starting my channel, and one of the female staff members at one of the stores that I used to visit basically complained to my employer, and he said, "Sorry, gotta let you go," and that was that. So there was a window of opportunity. I wouldn't say it was a massive opportunity, but it was a chance that I might have been able to get that back. So I had to hide my channel so that they couldn't go back to it and basically give me a flat no based on that. However, unfortunately, they still said no, so I reinstated my channel, and that's that. But I never deleted it; it was just hidden. But yeah, it was a bit of a fright for some people, including yourself, I believe.
Yes, and so basically, what should we talk about on this live stream? Let's talk about those feminist, quote-unquote, gender study universities. That seems a fun topic.
You know what? I'm actually glad you brought that up, and I'm going to turn my other phone on because there was something I actually found the other night. Of course, we know what the Duluth model is. It's basically the power and control wheel. It's this feminist theory that feminists say, well, we got patriarchy, and within the patriarchy, men use power and can use violence, either physical or sexual, to exert power and control over women. And for that reason, we need all of this special legislation brought in to protect women from these nasty patriarchs. Oh, and we need a lot of money as well as protection from men. So that's the first thing. The next part about the whole discussion is, well, I don't think people, I know people are aware that governments in the West are inherently feminist. I don't think most people actually understand exactly how they got there. One thing people need to understand. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go to La Trobe University's website. So La Trobe University is a university in what some people like to call Kaktoria, also known as Victoria. It's basically the SJW.
I call it shit-toria.
So Canberra is the capital of Australia, but Victoria is the SJW capital of Australia. So I just like to share with you. SJW is Social Justice Warrior.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
So looks like the women are saying, "Oh, we need protection. We need special legislation. We need money." So that's what the women are saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I came across an article on that today, as a matter of fact, and essentially what it was about. Where is it? It was a lady talking about how the Equality Act actually harms women because now men can self-identify as women. They can get access to all of the special stuff that women had before, and women are no longer protected.
So they're going to say, I only want equality when it's in my favor.
That's it in a nutshell. Yes. You know what? I was going to do this on my stream, and I probably still will. But let me read this out to you. Is that cool if I share that one here?
Yes, you can share everything here.
All right, cool. So this is an opinion piece by Doreen Denny on Fox News. It says, how can people like Ginny Rometty, the first female CEO of IBM, so easily jump on the bandwagon of the so-called Equality Act and fail to see its obvious threats to women? The Equality Act, which would mean amending existing federal civil rights law, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964, to include sexual orientation and gender identity as protected characteristics, seeks to erase the understood binary definition of sex as either male or female and enshrine a new definition of sex that includes a person's perception of his or herself, not the actual chromosomal DNA that identifies his or her true sex. The monumental rewrite of our civil rights laws, which will receive its first hearing before the House Judiciary Committee this week, is being promoted by the activist human rights campaign House Speaker, and you all know her name, Nancy Pelosi. Every member of her Democratic caucus and a long... Yep. Nancy fucking Pelosi. And a long list...
or Nancy the thoughtful.
I mean, if you kind of rearrange the letters of her name, it almost represents Nancy Sloppy. So I'm just going to go with that. Apparently a long list of major US businesses are also supporting this rewrite of the civil rights laws. It says this bill would create a world in which women and girls, and here's what I was mentioning before, Igor, are no longer recognized, protected, or dignified as uniquely female in jobs, education, sports, shelters, or any public space. Any biological man classifying himself as a woman according to his gender identity would have every claim to any women's program, scholarship, sports roster, competition, boardroom, executive office, women's shelter, bathroom, locker room, or job. So that's interesting.
So they have going to make up their mind. Either choose equality or special privileges. You cannot
exactly.
Control.
And but the thing is, they can't even pick one of those while they're still backing social justice causes such as transgenderism. Now, look, gender dysphoria is clearly something that is very disturbing for the individual that suffers from it. But I don't think that automatically means that individual can just decide they are whatever they are. And the interesting thing I see is that most transgenders are going male to female, right? And one of the few instances of a female to male transgender that I came across, she was actually gobsmacked at how differently she got treated as a male. And I was like, welcome to manhood, sweetheart. You thought it was so fucking privileged, and now nobody even wants to open the door for you. Isn't that a nice slap in the face after undergoing transition surgery?
Wow.
I know, right?
I don't even open doors for women. I just say, you're strong, independent women. Do it yourself.
Exactly. But Igor, see, you know that paragraph I just read to you with all of those different things that men would now be allowed to, I guess, engage in that used to belong exclusively to women. I noticed there, boardroom and executive office. So does that mean there are boardrooms just for women, executive offices just for women, that they now feel are under threat? Isn't that kind of sexist? I'll answer the question for you. Yes, it's sexist. So I just find that really interesting.
Oh, speaking of the female-only boardrooms, So women, so my message is that women want the cushy jobs only. So they want to keep it women only, so that the men have to do all the hard work.
Correct. Correct. They're not interested in the shit jobs. They're not interested in the dangerous jobs. In fact, they're so uninterested in the dangerous jobs that pay well, mind you, that the Australian Army was recruiting for infantry and artilleryman positions, basically foot soldiers, who, as we know, are essentially in a war human collateral. They had so few females applying for the role, even though on every bus stop that it had pictures of women dressed up in army gear and all of this propaganda, all of this Facebook advertising in of course, because women love Facebook. Um, all of these different places that were advertising and trying to promote women in the army and having special, women in defense days, all of this money and time and wasted energy. And even after all that, they basically kept all of the positions open for 6 weeks from the time they open. And they don't let a single male candidate into that running for that position for the first 6 weeks while they wait for a female candidate to put their hand up and say, hey, I'd like to do that. And even if you get in right after no female candidates apply as a male, your minimum service term in the Australian Army is 4 years. In order to try and entice women into the army, because they couldn't do it with all of this advertising and all this propaganda and all of this special treatment and all of this 6-week red carpet rolled out for them, on top of that, they had to reduce the minimum service term for women down from the 4 years which men have to serve to 2 years. So they halved the minimum requirement.
So that was the same thing. So when we were in somewhere when we where we were running for physical education in school, once I hear that women have to do half less of the work that men have to do, I revolted immediately.
Correct, just so they can complete it. Funny, right?
Yeah, so I almost revolted. So they added another so women have to do 3 and the men have to do 4. And the only reason they added a third one is because I complained and revolted.
Good on you. I would have said they do. If I have to do 4, they're doing 4, or I'm not doing shit.
Yes, and I was about to say history to Australian military. Why waste so amount of precious time and money on the people who aren't even strong enough, on average, to men?
I'll show you why. And when you see the picture of our our feminist defense minister, everything will make sense to you.
Defense minister.
So this is our defense minister. This is the person responsible for the sovereignty and strength of Australia's military.
So that feminist defense minister.
That's our defense minister.
I was almost about to call Kim Jong-un when I heard that the Australian military was having female soldiers.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I was about to tell Kim Jong-un, this is your chance, invade now or never.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And then the females opened their holes to the North Korean soldiers.
Yep. Yep. I saw this really funny meme the other day, and it was basically saying what women say they'll do in a crisis where the country is basically going to shit, and what they actually do. And what they say they'll do is, be there with the machine gun defending their country. But what they're actually doing was standing on the street whoring themselves out. And, I feel like that's probably a pretty accurate, representation of what's likely to happen in the event of an economic collapse of any country.
Yes. Just imagine if another feminist defense minister comes. Just imagine the hordes of North Korean soldiers coming to Sydney.
Well, some guys in the military already had to paint their nails pink for some fucking bullshit vagina day. I mean, imagine let's just take the Russian military, for example. Can you imagine them being stupid enough to put an SJW feminist in charge of the military and then get the men to paint their fucking fingernails pink? What an absolute joke of a military that would be. And that's what we're starting to see in Australia.
Well, just wait until Russia claims North Australia and Darwin as Russian land for thousands of years. And they can't do crap about it.
Yep. And here's the funny thing, Igor. I honestly would not even be remotely mad. Right? I would be happy. Okay. If I've got a call coming through from some weird number. I would be happy if Russia invaded Australia and took over, because they'd show women what a fucking patriarchy is, those whinging feminist cunts. And then, of course, and look, there are a lot of feminists who are actually, they call themselves feminists, but they're actually egalitarians, right? And I think we need to start prying those women away from the egalitarian, because anyone who is an actual feminist in 2019, with the litany of laws and privileges and benefits that have been bestowed upon these women, are exactly what I called the feminists before. Right? Because they've got no gratitude and they're taking everything, and they've got no concept of reciprocity and actually giving back to those who have given to them. They've got no concept. It's all about them, completely and utterly.
So when men have land rights issues, the women are going to spin it. Oh, it's me! It's me!
Yep. Yep.
So women are going to spin the men's rights issues as their issues.
Yeah, so even men's issues are feminist issues somehow. It's like,
yes, but I don't know how do we get rid of these feminists.
I know exactly how we get rid of them. We make it illegal for men to be discriminated against on any grounds. Because at the moment, you've got the Anti-Discrimination Act in Australia and in other countries. But that Discrimination Act, let's say, for example, if feminists had a particular thing and they wanted to discriminate against men, they can make an application to get an exemption to the Anti-Discrimination Act. So I think exemptions should just be out the window. No exemptions, right? And that means, by the way, that means no more women's fitness gyms. That means no women in business clubs. That means no women-only gatherings. So all of these little kitschy get-togethers where women get together as, business networking, or, a Swedish freaking dance festival where it's women only, or men as long as they present as a woman, although they don't look very womanly. All of these women's only gatherings, finished. Right?
We're going to tell a story that I want to make. The year is 2024. MGTOWs have created a protectorate in occupied Australia. They have already destroyed the family court and are busy removing the women who remain.
I'm actually going to share something with you around the family courts. And this is very, 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 very concerning. I'm going to be doing a video on this very, very soon. But I'm just on the Australian Law Reform Commission website. Now let's just think about that for a second. Australian Law Reform Commission. Let's look at what their actual purpose is and why they're here, right? So they're about the ALRC. The Australian Law Reform Commission undertakes research and provides recommendations to reform the law on topics selected by the Attorney General of Australia. ALRC recommendations do not automatically become law. However, over 85% of ALRC reports have been either substantially or partially implemented, making the ALRC one of the most effective and influential agents for legal reform in Australia. Now, so the Attorney General of Australia picks the topics for the ALRC to speak about, and 85% of those recommendations from the ALRC become enshrined in law. Okay? Now let's have a look at a recent recommendation put forward by the ALRC. And this is with a male Governor General. Labor leader Bill Shorten has said that he is preferencing the Greens and the Liberals before any other party. Liberal Party is preferencing Labor and the Greens. So all of the three major parties are a vote for leftist scumbag, social justice warrior, feminists, radical leftists. Now, Bill has said that if Labor gets in, he will appoint Australia's first female Governor General. So that will mean that the female Governor General will be putting forward topics for the ALRC to talk about, and 85% of the recommendations from the ALRC, which is overrun by feminists, mind you, get enshrined into law.
So
Think of how
can I say?
Think of how scary that is. And this is what I found on the ALRC website as a recommendation. Chapter 19 provides an overview of integrated responses and some best practices in relation to family violence in Australia. Integrated responses to family violence have flourished since a pioneering model. The Domestic Abuse Intervention Project was established in Duluth, Minnesota in 1981. The Duluth model. And it actually has the Duluth model in brackets on the Australian Law Reform Commission's website. This is a government website, and they are quoting the Duluth model as a successful family response model for family violence. This model is based on 4 key principles: the need for coordination and cooperation between agencies, the need for collaboration between partners, a focus on victim safety, aka anyone who complains if they have a vagina, and the need for offenders to be held accountable for their actions. The Duluth model features offender programs, which is if you're a male and you're beating up on your wife, then we're going to teach you how to change so you don't beat up on your wife. Community awareness raising and training, aka propaganda and indoctrination, and case management, aka looking after women while suppressing anything the man has to say. It works in tandem with and monitors criminal justice services. So this Duluth model actually oversees our criminal justice services in Australia. This is how deeply ingrained... Pardon?
Let me summarize this up. So the only reason this entire organization of law suggestion is to help protect the women, nothing else.
Correct.
There, just summarized it. And I've always wanted to nuke Duluth.
Always wanted to what?
Launch a nuclear bomb to Duluth and finally destroy the town that makes everything hard for men.
Well, the video that I'm looking to do, this is a snippet of the video I'm doing. The video I will be doing is absolutely explosive, and I'm launching it with the intention of disrupting political agendas during the 6 weeks leading up to our federal election.
Hey, can I hack the election to basically make your favorite party win?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm always down for Russian interference, even though Russians don't interfere in Western elections. But you know,
I'll pay some Russian hackers to do it.
perfect, perfect. If you could just call up old Donald Trump, who's going to be in again on 2020, and ask him where he got his from, because according to social justice warriors, he totally had Russians helping him out, even though the Mueller report found absolutely no evidence of collusion whatsoever. And they investigated the investigators. They investigated the investigators of the investigators. They investigated the investigators of the investigators of the investigators that were investigating Trump. And they found nothing. And they can't handle it because that was their only explanation for Trump winning. And now that's out the window, suckers.
Alright, here's the plan. Are there any primaries where you get to be the party leader of a certain party in Australia? Because if there is, I need you to be the party leader so I can start the hacking.
Yep, no worries. Well, I'm afraid that if I'm going to be leading any parties, I'll have to wait till the next election because I just simply don't have enough time prior to this election to go through that.
Coming
up? In 4 years and 5 or 6 weeks. Federal election, that is. Yeah. But that'll give us plenty of time to get momentum.
Oh, great. So then when we have the federal election, then I'll be able, when we have power, then I'll be able to send my Igor MGTOW Grand paratroopers and land and just take control. Together ruling Australia. And I'll take the western part. With all the desert and one little Perth.
Yep. By the way, I found another article here. To stop domestic violence, we need to change perpetrators' behavior. And it says here, the programs are used in Australia. There's a behavioral change services in Australia for men, of course, use a mix of approaches. A, the Duluth model, court-mandated programs with a focus on power and control. 2, the feminist socio-political model, a focus on men's violence as a product of gender inequities. 3, psychoeducational approaches, a focus on individuals and learning better impulse control using cognitive behavioral approaches.
So here's the story of the current world. 2029. Men have become second-class citizens and the women are having full control. But that doesn't stop the men, though. A secret council of men are planning a revolt somewhere.
Yep. Fuck. What the fuck? Hang on. I just found more. So there's a website called thelookout.org.au and introduction to them. Oh God, this is in Victoria. You can find training and events for and from the Victorian family violence sector. You can imagine how well this is going to go. And where is it? Duluth workshop, working with male perpetrators of violence against women. Wow.
They're openly admitting that the men are the only people who can do violence, ignoring the women on women violence that sometimes happens.
Mm-hmm.
How classic this is.
And there was a Harvard study done on heterosexual couples between the ages of 18 and 28. And they found that of all domestic violence perpetrated, of all non-reciprocal, aka one party only, perpetuating domestic violence, women were the perpetrator of one-sided domestic violence 70% of the time. And both the responses from the women in the survey and the men in the survey married up, which meant women were actually being honest and saying that they perpetrated one-sided domestic violence.
But
yeah.
Even try domestic violence, it wouldn't survive very long because I have crafting skills. I can easily just turn anything into a weapon.
Oh,
One,
wait.
one,
Wow.
one slap
Wow.
by women, one slap by women, and you're one slap by women, and you are wrecked.
Hmm.
Because I already have a bow and arrow type thing. So basically, I'm planning to make the arrows more sharp, and the target for the arrows is the eyes of the women.
Yeah, wow. Hey, by the way, Igor, you know that Duluth workshop I just told you about?
What about it? Conclude
I
workshop.
just want to read to you the points that the workshop will address, and then I will tell you the real kicker. It says the workshop will address theories that guide the change, creating a process for change for men who batter program, facilitating structured interactive classes, establishing and maintaining dialogue while avoiding collusion, using control logs, equality logs, exercises including role plays and video vignettes, helping men identify and change beliefs that support violence, learning how creating a process of change for men who batter program fits within a Duluth model interagency coordinated community response. Morning tea, lunch, and afternoon tea are included. Here's the kicker. Guess how much they are charging for men to go and be told how bad they are? $715.
Oh, why would I pay $750 just for people to tell how men they are? Why should I pay for the conclude organization to tell me how bad I am?
Exactly. Exactly.
How do
And
you
then,
like the word conclude?
yeah. And I've actually got this is on the Australian Parliament website, domestic violence issues and policy challenges. And it looks like that actually refers to the Duluth model also. Yeah, it does. Here we go. There are two main approaches to intervention programs, which usually take the form of group programs that target perpetrators. Psychoeducational programs, the most common approach, and usually employing a feminist perspective of domestic violence that places the responsibility for the violence with the perpetrator and highlights the contribution of patriarchal gender relations in contributing to domestic violence by explicitly and implicitly sanctioning men's use of power and control over women. The Duluth approach, discussed below under integration intervention programs, typically employs a feminist psychoeducational approach. Wow. Just fucking wow. My video is just getting more and more hard hitting by the moment.
Oh, I just want to say something. Want to
Tell me.
hear the first country who legalized abortion? That's right, the Soviet Communist Union. The first country to legalize abortion and all these other bad things.
Fuck's sake. Just incredible.
Oh, I changed my name. Sydney. I changed
Yo,
my name. Sydney. He wants to tell you something. Sydney, watch the video when you get time. You won't believe your ears and eyes. They're teaching women how to steal children in family courts.
was this the one by Red Pill Wisdom by any chance?
I'll try to find out.
What happened?
I'm trying to find out who the maker of this video is. But I have to. This takes long. But don't worry
Look,
because
I'll check it out. If you want to flick that through to me, I'm happy to check that out.
Red
I've actually,
Pill Wisdom.
yep,
It's Red Pill Wisdom.
I've seen that one. It's basically the Bar County has got um, continued education, which you have to do to maintain your certification as a legal practitioner. And it's got a woman from the it's one of the officers, and she's basically telling the solicitors that are undergoing their continued education, look, if you've got a woman who's claiming domestic violence, just file this yourself. Don't come to me, because if you come to me, then I have to investigate it, and you need, not only do you need more proof, but it's more work for me. So if you want to get a better outcome for your client and you don't want to have as much proof, then just go straight and make domestic violence go straight ahead with the domestic violence allegation lodgement, and it will be a good bargaining tool in divorce as well. So yeah, I have seen that one. Very, very, very sinister and pernicious.
Oh, very sinister indeed.
Yeah.
So it's real. So we're basically telling the court. So we're basically helping the court with that. So now that they have the silver bullet, what bullets can we create to destroy the court? What?
Yeah.
They have the silver bullet. How about we have the silver nuclear bomb?
I wish. It'd certainly be a good counter to the silver bullet, that's for sure.
Yes, in occupied Australia, I have already banned family courts.
Hey, here we go. I've just been flicking through this article to find any more Duluth references. Both the Australian Capital Territory, which is the ACT, which is Canberra, our nation's capital, is in, and Tasmanian integrated responses include both policy and operational elements. The ACT Family Violence Intervention Project has a policy rather than legislative basis and involves policing, prosecutions, the courts, corrective services, youth and family services, and victims of crime organizations. These efforts are coordinated by a committee and chaired by the Victims of Crime Coordinator, and it operates with a Duluth-style approach, including pro-arrest policies, victim support, and perpetrator programs as a sentencing option. So basically, if you're a man and you get accused of domestic violence, you can either go to jail, or you can say, well, I don't want to go to jail, but I'm going to admit that I was a perpetrator and do a perpetrator program so I can be indoctrinated by feminists on how to be a better man.
Wait a minute. How is that still illegal? Because I have already made feminism banned in occupied Australian territory. Oh yes, I still don't have any ground troops there. Also, I've renamed Canberra into MGTOW and City.
Yeah, well, if Canberra became a MGTOW state, that would be great, because at least we would be able to say no to these feminists who are pushing for all these laws.
Yes.
And I know Turd Flinging Monkey and also Paul Elam in A Voice for Men have both done videos which reference a book in which Ellen Pence, one of the three creators of the Duluth model, admits that they ignored women's violence against each other and against children. So I'm currently trying to find out what the title of that is so I can get a hold of that book, because I need to sit in front of legislators and members of parliament with that book saying this is a discredited model. We ignored this, right? I'm one of the creators and I ignored this. And here's my book that I wrote about it. And then show them all of the different pieces of referencing to the Duluth model in Australia. I mean, they're just not even hiding it anymore. Like, feminists are not even hiding the fact that they're using the feminist Duluth model and a feminist lens through which to assess perpetration rates and prosecute people.
Yes. I think we need to create a special Manus Island just for feminists.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
A special island prison camp where we're gonna transport feminists there under the guise of special feminist vacation. But it's actually going to be a prison camp, and they would spend long times there, and then once, and then and then we are going to tell them how feminism is bad while they're in the prison, or should I say re-education camps?
Mm. Yep.
Yes, and that means less feminists equals less women. So hopefully that doesn't. So hopefully this works. I've
Holy
also made
shit.
a first. I've also I've also planned to take control of Australia's natural resources and give it to the MGTOWs.
Mm. Absolutely.
One MGTOW gets the control of all the oil fields in the Great Australian Bight. Then another one gets the control of some certain resources in the outback, which I don't even know. The control of the oil mines, of
Yep.
the coal. So basically, MGTOWs get to control the entire natural resources.
Correct. Correct. I mean, at least we
So
know that they
basically,
wouldn't. At least we know they wouldn't squander the resources, unlike feminists.
yeah. So basically, if you won't even have a piece of those natural resources, you have to basically be a MGTOW. Feminists, they cannot even get anything, not even the breadcrumbs of those natural resources,
Yep. Yep. Exactly
or at
right.
least breadcrumbs. They'll get
Mm.
the breadcrumbs while we get to have all of this and create new cities.
Yep.
Also, I wanted to turn the entirety of the Australian outback into green pastures and those kind of things. No, that's my profile picture. I see. Oh, my mom is just some. I'm just telling my mom something.
Sure.
So, at least, so that means hopefully this works because we really need to create a big tall country.
I think we just need
And
to
I
get
will,
feminists. What we need, and I know where all of this is coming from. I know where all of the social justice warriors are coming from. I know where all of these people in the media that are feminists and social justice warriors are coming from. I know where all of these diversity experts, I know where it's all coming from. It is all coming from the universities. All of it. Every single last one of them. And then people from the universities are then going out and educating people who then become just basically puppets of the people that have been to university. So the
yes.
universities is where all of this bullshit about gender studies is starting. And I did mention before, but I'd really love to go through this. Gender, sexuality, and diversity studies at La Trobe University. It says study the ways study the ways identity shapes and is shaped by politics, society, culture, knowledge, and power. Explore relationships between gender, sexuality, ethnicity, class, disability, age, and nation and identity. Develop skills in analysis, critical thinking, writing, and interpreting data. Now, that's cancerous enough, right?
I
So let
believe
me.
there, I believe there is a hidden step in the Australian federal elections. It's basically ask China to basically accept you as president, since China is the parent of Australia.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you have to ask China to accept you as the prime minister.
Yeah, well, I'm sure China is probably not too impressed with our existing prime ministers at the moment, if they do have that level of sway. But this is the crazy thing that I wanted to get to, Igor. So I mentioned before why study sexuality and diversity studies at La Trobe, right? And keep in mind, Latrobe in Victoria actually does a lot of government advising. So the government relies a lot on universities that have done studies to advise them on the formation of their own policies. So if you're getting skewed information out of universities, then you're going to have skewed policies based on skewed information, right? And the career opportunities for gender studies graduates, like, I hope you're sitting down for this because this is just ridiculous. Human rights and equal opportunity, social and policy planning, human resource management, teaching and education, media and communications, public relations and journalism, political work, human rights and equal opportunity, community service and community development.
What idiocy is this?
I know, right?
Yes.
So these are literally the pathways for people in gender studies. Like, this is where they can go. They can go into politics, human resources, all of these different things. It's just absolutely insane, like pure insanity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Vlad, do you want to join? Oh, Vlad is that another cool guy you may want to know.
Okay, yep.
So, I'm going to send him the link. He's another one of those guys you may want to know. He's also MGTOW.
Yep.
So Vlad is basically, I'm gonna introduce him a little short. So Vlad is that Russian MGTOW who currently lives in Israel. He's from Belarus and he's somewhere in Modular.
So he's living in Israel at the moment.
Oh yes, that's if I've heard him correctly.
And what was the question specifically?
So I just told him whether he wants to join the stream or not, because I have the link, and I think he may want to, join it. So basically, think you might want to know him.
Well, I must let you know I do have to go very shortly because I pretty much drove home from work, went and got dinner straight away, jumped on the stream with you, and it's about 10 past 8 p.m. at night, and I've got to get up at 5 a.m.
Oh, so I'm gonna probably, it's the same in, Sydney says that it's the same in Aussie land. Don't believe it, we will continue to promote multiculturalism until white Christian people are no more. But I don't get it. Why is this white children white Christian so important that they are actually going to defend it so hard?
I don't know. I guess you hold on to what you know, right?
Oh. So basically, I have the plan to make a common MGTOW identity. One MGTOW language, one MGTOW currency, one MGTOW culture, and one MGTOW ethnicity.
Well, I think the MGTOW currency is going to be crypto.
Hopefully this is. But we need the special MGTOW crypto. And I've been already working on a website, which is basically a censorship-free version of YouTube. It's called MGTOW.
Yeah, I've heard about that. That's awesome.
Have you watched my videos on it?
I've seen one or two of your videos on it. Obviously, eagerly awaiting to see it coming out. You know, hopefully you've got the bandwidth and the storage capacity for it because it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, so hopefully, if you watch the entire series, you can see slowly upgrading. And
Awesome.
and currently it looks like a semi-version of YouTube. And I'm currently working to implement the ad suggestions and comments tier page, which is basically where you're able to see. So we have all the features necessary except one. I even have the upload button prototype, but I don't know how to make it actually work.
That's all right. You'll get it.
Hopefully. So the website is nearing completion.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking
Hopefully
forward to that.
yes, and I hope I find a company that wants to host a website, or I'll have to get one of my virtual machines to host it for me.
Are you looking to create a revenue structure for it in terms of monetization, or is it just going to be a labor of love?
I don't know how to implement monetization because no company is going to want to monetize on a MGTOW platform.
Yeah, that's
But,
true.
but I'm planning to implement the donate button into MacTube so that you can donate to basically help it host the website. Because
Yeah,
not everything is free.
that is very, very true. Very true.
And I wish I can monetize MacTube, but at the moment I cannot monetize because no company is going to want to go to MacTube, a starter company, when they already have the big platform YouTube, which already demonetizes MGTOW. So it's
Yeah,
going to be a labor of love, but not by choice, mind you. It's by the constraints.
yeah. Oh
But
man,
hopefully,
it's a tough road
but,
ahead, that's for sure.
but I'll make a song. But I'm planning to make a subscribe button, and then I'm planning to make a join button. So basically, if you want to give money to your favorite MGTOW channel, hopefully Sydney is one of them. Then you can click the join button and send a donation. Hopefully that works on my website.
Awesome. That'd be cool. Hopefully that is something that works. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so MacTube basically looks like YouTube in 2008.
Okay.
Which
So
is basically YouTube in the beginning.
yeah, right. I'm trying to visualize what it would look like back in 2008, but I think once I'm off the phone, I'll have to go and check it out and see what it looks like at the moment. Because I haven't probably seen it for about maybe a month and a half. I just like I've literally had so much going on with working security, long hours at my existing workplace.
I'm going
Had to go
to
home
do
for a
a
family
screen
event.
share. I'm going to do screen share.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, share. So that you can see so that you can see basically what MacTube looks. Is screen share enabled?
I think you have to click it again to share with everyone.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Yes, share. That works. So look at this. This, Sydney, is what MacTube looks like. Like
Okay.
it? So this is become a member. So you have to make your account and then you have to say, I'm a male, I'm not married or cohabitating, and I agree to terms of service. Then we have community guidelines, which is to prevent some people who basically aren't good for MGTOW and from joining. Then this is the prototype upload button, but it doesn't seem to work. Oh, let's try. It doesn't seem to work because you'll see what I mean. So let's just find a certain video. I don't really know. Oh yes, there and see, it still says the video uploaded. It's just a prototype, Sydney.
Yeah,
Do you like the
gotcha.
prototype?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean,
Awesome,
obviously, get some graphic design work happening, and it'll look nice and smick. But I think the concept is really cool.
Yes, and it has this next view, no women and girls allowed. Oh damn! I didn't think that it would just exit out of my own prototype website. And then we have no women and girls allowed and censorship free. And then we have sign into your account if you want to log into your account that you made.
Sweet.
And this is definitions for moderators to help moderators remove certain people. And here is the prototype's add suggestions. So you can basically type what you want.
I might go check that out when I get a chance. But Igor, man, I gotta get going, dude. I'm like I'm ready to fall asleep. I'm so tired.
Oh, hopefully. Did you like what I showed to you?
Yeah, it's cool, man. I'm definitely gonna go and have a look in a browser of the site, and it's really cool to see it making progress. Because I remember when it had not much on there at all. The first time you mentioned it, I was like, "Oh, that's a cool concept." So I'm looking forward to seeing it up and running when that comes to fruition.
Yes, hopefully it does. And I'm planning to make a new episode of Active where I change up the code. So when do you want to basically... So you said you must go. So when is that going to happen? Because when you go, I'm going to end the stream.
Oh, sorry, I said I'm what? You mean?
So you said you were going to go because you're tired. So when is that going to happen? Because if that happens, I'm going to end the stream because there's no use to continuing the stream.
Yeah, no, I might go now if it's cool. I really need to sleep.
So, are you ready to exit?
Yeah, man, ready to exit.
So, just click the X button to exit.
Cool. Thanks for the invite, man. It was a pleasure being on.
Yes, it was a pleasure having you on my screen.
Appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, bye-bye.
See ya.
And Sydney exited. And this is a quick... This stream was basically taking 57 minutes, if I've heard, and looks like it's time to save this. This has been the chat. So this has been Igor MGTOW and Video Games, and bye bye.